Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers, FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well. Guess what? I am back in the saddle again. Everything is good. The video, the camera, the sound, the audio, the planning, the computer is back. It took days and days and days, but shout out to Lenovo. Their customer service was great. By their extended warranty, folks, they covered everything. No cost in anything. They came to the house, made the changes, all that kind of stuff. So shout out to Lenovo for helping me get the computer back on track after the snafu. Not thank you to Microsoft. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it. I really appreciate you joining us every day here on the show, Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We go about an hour each day. Then we go over to SiriusXM an hour later from 2 to 5 Eastern. Monday through Friday, we have the Elite Sports Show with Jeff Manns. I host here Monday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman does Tuesdays and Wednesdays. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I'm over with Jeff on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Things are going to be changing next week. So just to give a shout out, I'll mention it again on the show tomorrow as well. Jeff Mann's taking a vacation next week, so he deserves that. So we'll wish Jeff and his family a nice time away. What that means is I'll be hosting the Elite Sports Show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. So I won't be here Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Justin Fensterman will be hosting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here next week. I'll return to hosting the show, just doing Thursday and Friday next week. But again, I'll be doing the show. Also, the Elite Sports Show will only be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Draft coverage, combine coverage, taking over while Jeff is away. So we'll be over there. I'll be over there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Back here Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman will be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Justin will also be joining us on the show. He'll be joining us to talk hoops every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week on SiriusXM. And the three guys you see talking football all the time, Armando Marsal, who's with us on Tuesdays, Tyler Beaker, who we'll talk to later today, and Russell Clay, who we talk to on Fridays. All three of those gents will be joining me throughout the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday situation next week. So lots of exciting things coming down the pipe. Here's the schedule. I'll throw it up on the screen. Speaking of things coming down the pipe, this was asked in Discord. You obviously, if you've been listening, paying attention, you didn't get the announcement. I apologize that we weren't able to announce on Tuesday's show what we're doing. The people we're working with are not quite ready, unfortunately. We're ready on our end, but unfortunately, it's not quite ready. So the big announcement, and I really hate doing this because I don't want to be one of these people that strings people along. That's not my deal. I think those of you that have followed me for a long time know that. That's not my jam, baby. So I apologize that it's played out this way. But the bottom line is we're hoping for next Tuesday. We will be basically, I'll say this. We're debuting new fantasy baseball. And it starts next week. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about it on SiriusXM. We'll announce it. We'll announce it here on the show. I guess I'll get a lot of time, hopefully, next week to talk about it because Jeff won't be there. Ha, ha, ha. So I'll just get a chance to babble on and on and on. But hopefully next week, we're changing the face of fantasy baseball. We're trying to make it more pleasing to all of you, or listen to your complaints, your comments. And we're going to create some new categories of fantasy baseball playing, and we'll hopefully start that next week. On the screen, there's the rest of what we're doing today. The draft guide is available over at fantasyguru.com. If you have any questions about anything, send an email to support@fantasyguru.com. Support@fantasyguru.com. I talked about this earlier. Tyler Beaker will be joining us in about 25 minutes. We're starting, if you didn't see the show yesterday, we're starting our review of teams. So we're going to go team by team with the guys, Armando, Tyler, Russell, looking back at what happened in 2025 in football and what the future potentially holds for these teams. We'll talk free agents. We'll talk the draft. We'll talk coaching. Today, we're talking Atlanta Falcons with Tyler Beaker in about 25 minutes. Before that, a bunch of news to get to. Dodger news, Mets news. What is going on with Jordan Westburg? This is starting to get really kind of strange. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Dansby, Swanson, Austin, Riley, Connor Griffen. Is Connor Griffen going to make the team for the Pirates? We'll talk about that. Schwellenbach, Waldrep, some injuries. Steele, Cole, Musgrave, Bubic, Junk, Garrett. Is Braxton Garrett? Braxton Garrett was in the breakout pitcher of the year column. By the way, the breakout pitcher of the year column for 2026 will be out next week. So look out for that. Who's the closer in Arizona? What the hell's going on with Josh Hader? We'll get into all these things here moving forward. Remember, go to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up for the product over at FG. Draft Guide is what we call it. It's a full season product. We all know that. On and on and on. You can do it. You can have fun. You can have success with us all season long. The articles will not stop merely because the regular season stops. You buy a product right now, you get the whole thing all season long over at fantasyguru.com. You can also sign up right now for the two packages that I don't think they're on the screen there, but the two packages we have, which are also the DFS and the wagering packages for baseball. You can get two of the three packages. You can go all in and get all three of the packages. Only the seasonal one's obviously up right now, but you can get one of the three, two of the three, or all three over at fantasyguru.com. Subscribe tab, top right corner. Send an email to support@fantasyguru.com. And obviously, you can listen to us by going to FG. Click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. Type in Fantasy Sports Daily wherever you listen to podcasts. You should be able to find us there. And then the three places you can leave comments and questions live throughout the show. You can also watch on demand at any point after the fact for Night of Catch live. YouTube.com/@Elite Plus Network. Twitter X @FantasyGuru site. And Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. Twitter's trying to make it very difficult on us with the live stream in the morning. I think we figured out a way to make that more available, more understandable. Basically, they were letting us tweet it out, but then actually not updating when it went live. I think we found a way out to do it. So we did it this morning. We'll hope to continue that moving forward. All right, let's talk a little bit of Dodgers here before we talk some football in about 20 minutes with Tyler Beaker. And by the way, again, thank you everyone for your patience. I know that this has been a wonky setup the last week with my computer problems and doing videos without camera working and squeezing things in at the wrong times because of the tech people. So really appreciate y'all sticking with us here. Let's move forward. Dave Roberts said that he thinks that his number 3 hitter this year is going to be Mookie Betts. Interesting. He also said that Shohei Ohtani's batting leadoff. Okay, so Ohtani's batting leadoff. Betts is hitting third. That means that we're probably going to have 3 guys in the top 4 Dodger batters as lefties. So the real question is if it's Ohtani, unknown, Betts, unknown. The 2 unknowns are basically Freddie Freeman and Kyle Tucker. Does it really matter which guy hits second or fourth? We can talk a little bit here, a little bit there. The bottom line is the top 4 is very likely to be some combination of these guys. My guesstimate, because you can play this one of 2 ways. Kyle Tucker is a guy that can move on the bases. He can steal bases. He's obviously way more athletic than Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman, though, well, not that Kyle Tucker struggles to get on base by any means, but Freddie Freeman profiles a little bit better with the on base, right? He also uses the field a little bit better. I'd probably go Freddie Freeman second. Now, again, if Ohtani's hitting 45, 50 home runs, maybe you go Tucker second because then Tucker can get on base and steal a base. Whereas if Freeman gets on base, all he's going to do is, slap a single to the opposite field, right? So this will be fascinating to see. I don't know how much, again, impact. Gosh, I got something in my eye. I don't know how much. This is what happens when the video camera works. You can see that I keep my eyeballs don't work. I don't know how much it really matters for their fantasy outlook, second or fourth. Like you hit second, you score more runs. You hit fourth, you probably have more RBIs. But continue to follow this. I think you can play it both ways. And as I think about it, with Ohtani's ability to take it deep, and maybe they do go Tucker second. But regardless, it's going to be a dynamic group, and then on the Dodgers with all the depth they have and all of that. So continue to follow that storyline. Ohtani, by the way, speaking of him, this is the question, and Jeff Mans has raised this the last week over at over at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Again, remember 2 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday, Elite Sports. Jeff has raised this idea or question many times. The last 2 years, Shohei Ohtani's had 700 plate appearances each year, which is massive. And his production has obviously been massive too. With Ohtani pitching this year, there's obviously a question. How many games does he play offensively? Does he take the day off after he pitches? Are there games where he only pitches and doesn't hit? It's an unknown scenario, right? Because the Dodgers are kind of playing this by ear. Ohtani coming back from injury, he's healthy, and all that kind of stuff. But he didn't. Are they going to let Ohtani throw 175 innings this year? No, they're not going to do that. And the Dodgers don't do that anyway, as we've talked about. They've had 5 pitchers the last 5 seasons throw 160 innings, including one the last 3 years. Yamamoto last year is the only Dodger pitcher throwing 160 innings last 3 years. They don't let their guys go deep. They have no desire to do that. They have no plan to do that. Ohtani is going to start the year in the rotation for the Dodgers. Good. Here we go. Good. He's probably not going to pitch in Cactus League games. Okay. He's not going to pitch during the WBC. So it sounds possible, if not leaning toward probable, that Ohtani is going to start the year in the Dodgers rotation, having never thrown an actual game pitch any point in this preseason. Now, he'll be throwing on the side, and he'll probably be throwing batting practice, doing things on the backfields, all that kind of stuff. But he's going to start the season without really throwing an actual pitch in a game. So then the question becomes, all right, how deep is he going in these games? 2 1/3 innings, 3 1/3 innings? If he throws 60 pitches in 2 innings, do they just pull him? There's off days at the start of the year as well. So maybe the Dodgers skip a turn through the rotation for him because of off days. Maybe they just say, you're throwing 50 pitches today, you're throwing 3 innings today, whatever it might be. Bottom line is with Ohtani, we don't know what his overall workload is going to be. It's not likely to be a big number. And early in the year, it might be a struggle to get him to 5 innings, which is disappointing because obviously for the majority of people that play fantasy baseball, not all leagues, but the majority of people that play fantasy baseball, you need victories, right? So we'll continue to follow this situation and see how it plays out for Shohei Ohtani and the Dodgers. Luis Robert, now part of the Mets. Obviously a great addition by that team. The White Sox moving him to New York. The hope is that Robert, who has run a lot the last 2 years despite dealing with a lot of injuries, can rediscover the power. Maybe there's a 30-30 season here. Maybe it's a 30-20 season here. Maybe it's a 25-30 season here. Power and speed is the name of his game. There are holes in his game, batting average, streakiness. There's issues here. But he figures to play almost every day. He's in a much better environment, at least in terms of the roster, not necessarily the ballpark, but the roster. So he shows up to camp here, and he's going to be held out of Grapefruit League games to start to work on improving his core strength. What is going on? The Mets want him to work on strengthening his lower half given all the injuries he's dealt with. Totally get it. Couldn't the Mets have told him this back when they made the move to trade for him? Couldn't Robert, being a logical, I would assume, intelligent, person, realize I've had a lot of leg injuries. Maybe I should train more diligently with my legs or do something different or hire a different coach or do a different formula? Why is he not able to play at the start to work on strengthening his core? This, sometimes I see these things, right? And it's I just don't understand. And it's so weird because it's Luis Robert or any professional athlete, their body is their job. Your mind and everything. Oh, yeah. But your body's your job. You got to take care of your body. And I'm not saying Luis Robert's been sitting on a couch eating Doritos and drinking a fifth of vodka every night. I'm merely saying it's odd that he has to be told to do strengthening exercises of some kind to fix a known issue, which he should have been working on anyway. Are the Mets saying that the White Sox training staff is horrendous? Did Robert not follow the rules that the system that was put in place for him? Did he not do the training that was necessary? Are the Mets being overly cautious? I don't know. But it's just so keep an eye on this. I don't think it'll mean anything once we get going here. Okay? But we'll see. By the way, Ethan says, here, a question or comment about Ohtani. Having him in Dynasty is great, but it's always hard to decide whether to start him as a pitcher or a hitter. With little to no shot at a quality starter or win, it's easier, but when he gets stretched out, it's a headache. Yeah, it is, but at the same time, I totally get what you're saying. But the ability to use him as a pitcher and a hitter, if you set your lineup once on a Monday and you can't change your lineup all week, this is really tough. If the question comes down to, do I use him as a starter or a pitcher on a Tuesday or a Thursday? Well, put him as a pitcher this week because you need strikeouts, or leave him in the lineup as a hitter because the pitcher on the other side's terrible. It's not that bad. He's basically an all-star at both things, as you know, Ethan. So it's not that bad unless you're in a lot of leagues like I am, where you have to set your lineup on Monday for the whole week. That is a very difficult decision. If you're in that scenario, Ethan, yeah, I totally feel you on that. What is going on with Jordan Westburg? And I'm not really sure. Ethan, by the way, says they have daily lineup changes. So you're in a much better spot than I am. And that's been the issue in the leagues I'm in, where you set the lineup once. If you put him in as a pitcher and he throws 4 innings this week, that's a waste. If you put him in as a pitcher and they skip a start, that's a waste. I mean, and you lost those 3 home runs and 7 RBIs he had. So that's almost always we lean toward using him as a hitter in those setups, I think, barring, the matchups, of course, as we're talking about. What is going on with Jordan Westburg? I don't know that anyone knows. Okay. The Orioles manager, Craig Albernaz said, quote, he is physically unable to participate right now, unquote. The team hasn't officially said what's going on with Westburg. Westburg hasn't officially said what's going on here. We thought it was his oblique. Now we're hearing it's his elbow. Did he fall over when he was running? Did he get hit by a pitch? No. Right now, Westburg is going to see doctors outside the team. This is not good. I don't know what's going on here, and it may end up being absolutely nothing, but the oblique has now somehow become an elbow, and the manager doesn't really tell us what's going on. The player's not telling us what's going on. Westburg, who is talking to the Orioles medical staff, is also seeing doctors that aren't with the so we lowered him a little bit here. We lowered him a little bit here, but I got to tell you, here's the second quote from the manager. Quote, make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure Jordan is the best chance to play this year, unquote. Ooh. If you're drafting this weekend, I'm not calling his name out. I'm just not. And again, maybe this is no big deal. Maybe he's ready on the start of opening day, and maybe this will be, hey man, I had the flu. We didn't know, something sick, some illness, or I'm getting nervous. We again dropped them this morning in the rankings at fantasyguru.com. Remember, the rankings are updated on a continual basis at fantasyguru.com. If needed, that's daily as of now. Once the season begins, the rankings will be updated at the All-Star break. They'll be locked after that point. But that is a situation to monitor, because Westburg, in theory, is an everyday starter. In theory, he's a top 75, 50 player if everything goes right. I don't know what the hell's going on. Dansby Swanson, and we're starting to hear these reports, guys are showing up in good shape. They've lost weight. Guys have added weight. We'll talk about a player that did that here in a few minutes. It's not always bad to add weight. It depends if it's muscle. It's not always good to lose weight, but usually, you get the point. Best shape of my life kind of thing, right? Dansby Swanson said he's going to turn some of the power off to make better contact in 2026. He's hit 20-plus home runs. I think it's 22 home runs in 4 or 5 years. He's not a big home run guy, but yeah, he hits 20 home runs a year. Saying he's going to go for more contact than power. How much power are you selling out for power to hit 22 home runs? The answer is no. So his strikeout rate is 25+% during that time, which is not good, but it's certainly not bad. It's the league average 22%-ish, 22.5. We'll see. He is in. I'm reading the data here. His in zone contact rate though is really bad. He's 129th out of 144. Yeah. That's not good. So there is something to be said. He's probably seeing that. He's talking to his peeps, and maybe he's just doing the analysis himself. And he's saying, I got to do a better job putting the ball in play on pitches. And yeah, he does. He did go 2020 last year. So he 18 home runs, 20 steals. He's going to be in that Michael Harris zone, right? 2020-ish, 15-20, 2015. That's what he's basically done in the last 2 years, and in 3 of the last 4 years, actually. So Dansby Swanson is a really interesting player because he signed that massive $177 million deal, which is too much. But he's a leader on and off the field. He's very consistent. He's barely 32 years old. And if you're not getting one of the elite shortstops, he's certainly not a bad option to fall back to, because he plays every day and he produces. We'll see if that swing change really amounts to much once the games get going. Austin Riley of the Braves, who obviously his number one issue or concern is just to stay on the field and healthy. That's the number one thing he's got to do. He said that this offseason, everything was good. My body was in good shape, even though last year was a mess. I've been working with the hitting coach. I'm looking to find my old swing. I feel really good. He had sports hernia surgery in August, so that is now behind him. He's fully recovered. He's been doing normal workouts this offseason. He had hand surgery as well. last year. So he's just, we know this with Austin Riley. It's easy to forget that Austin Riley was at one point in time in the very near future, basically a superstar in the fantasy game. However, the injuries have limited him. He played 102 games last year. He played 110 games the year before that. And it's really easy to forget that the previous 3 years, 2021 to 2023, Austin Riley went 30, 90, 90 all 3 years. So Riley is a player that he's in our third tier of rankings over at fantasyguru.com over at FG. I just said that, sorry. Right behind Manny Machado, who's in tier 2 at the end of tier 2. The reason is because Machado does the exact same thing every year. Riley, with the uncertainty with the health, if Riley were to stay healthy this year, if he were to play the 151 games, that Machado plays all the time, Riley's very likely to be a better player than Machado this year. So keep that in mind. Good to hear that he's been training normally in the offseason. Zach Veen, we just talked about, or I referenced saying a player lost weight. I talked a lot about Zach Veen on this show and articles over at fantasyguru.com, bemoaned the fact that Jordan Beck was the guy that got the shot last year instead of Zach Veen. I've gotten a little upset with the Rockies at times saying, why don't they just let this guy play? I'm not going to change anything I said because what I said at the time was what the situation was. And I don't even know, and now with the news we've gotten the last week or so with him, I don't think the analysis was wrong, but his life was kind of messed up. For those people that didn't see, Zach Veen had a substance abuse issue, and he finally conquered it. So kudos to him. Now the reports say he added 35 or 40 pounds. I've talked about this a lot. When I was between my junior and senior year of high school, I lost 30 pounds. Don't know why. I played basketball and baseball year round. I have no idea what happened. All of a sudden, I showed up as a senior in high school, and I could dunk. I could one-hand dunk, two-hand dunk. I could reverse dunk because I basically took 30 pounds off, right? No idea what happened. Wasn't sick. And since then, I've gained back 10 pounds since then. So I basically am the exact same size I was when I was 18, but I was much bigger when I was 17. So body composition changes, that happens. 35, 40 pounds. Okay, you have substance abuse problems. You're not taking care of your body. That is a lot. That is a lot of weight. And that finding that balance and that equilibrium again is not easy. But the bottom line is that he spent 11 weeks in a program for substance abuser. He's, for now, let's hope, and again, there's oftentimes setbacks and all that, but great to hear that he's taking control of his life, that he's done the things that are necessary, taking the steps to improve. Physically, he's obviously much stronger now, in a much better spot. And, maybe Zach Veen that I've talked about for the last couple of years, maybe he shows up this year. And, Zach Veen is a guy that 15 to 20 home runs, 30 steals. Like, this was always thought possible with him. Hasn't come close to happening. He hasn't established himself at all at the big league level, not even close. But maybe he finally can. We'll wish him well. And that's, overcoming addiction is not easy. So let's all root for him and hope he can do it this year. And hope his life gets on track, more importantly, of course. But let's hope he can do it this year and start reaching some of the heights that we thought he could in the fantasy game. Konnor Griffen, who I spelled his name wrong, I apologize. I used an E instead of an I. The number one prospect in baseball. Manager Don Kelly said it'd be a tough ask, for him to make the team. So don't look for Konnor Griffen to break camp with the Pirates. He will absolutely, barring something unforeseen, be in the big leagues this year. He is a phenomenal generational type of talent. So for more on Griffen, read his scouting report over at fantasyguru.com. We've got the rankings up over there. He's only 19, but he's going to be a superstar. And it could start as early as this year. And in fact, it will, in my opinion, start this year, just not on opening day. Spencer Schwellenbach, Hurston, Waldrep, both these guys, the Braves, both guys have elbow issues. Surgery for Schwellenbach yesterday. Waldrop's having surgery next week. Braves manager Walt Weiss said the hope is that both guys will pitch this year. So as of now, I mean, obviously, especially in the case of Waldrep, hadn't even had his surgery yet. When Walt Weiss was talking, Schwellenbach had just having his surgery. They'll obviously get more clarity here. We know that bone spurs were removed from Schwellenbach's elbow. He's missing at least 60 days. In an absolute best case scenario, that means he's out 2 months. But again, the hope is that he pitches this year. No telling at the moment whether Schwellenbach throws a pitch. It's looking like a second half Schwellenbach is probably a best case scenario. In the case of Waldrep, he has a loose elbows in his body too. We'll see. It depends where these chips are. It depends how easy they are to remove. It depends what damage the chips have caused once they get in there. Sometimes they find things they don't expect. They don't, you do the imaging, but sometimes, right? So we'll see. Ethan says Richie time. Well, they're counting. It's a good question. J.R. Richie, who's their number one pitching prospect that's healthy at the moment for the Braves, he could make the team. As of right now, Bryce Elder, Grant Holmes, Reynaldo Lopez, Spencer Strider, Chris Sale would be their top 5. Did you notice yesterday that Strider was pitching and the radar gun didn't work? See me winking there for those of you watching. How does the radar gun not work? First time all spring the gun hadn't worked when Strider was pitching. Interesting. Grant Holmes coming back from injury. We talked about him earlier this week. Same thing with Reynaldo Lopez, whose velocity was down like 4 miles an hour when he was throwing the other day. Bryce Elder's just a guy. We'll see what the Braves do. Richie, Schwellenbach, Waldrep are tremendous talents. Don't know when we're seeing those guys this year for the Braves. And those other two, Waldrep and Spencer Schwellenbach, don't even know if we're going to see them. Guy coming back from injury, Justin Steele, threw a 30-pitch bullpen session the other day, coming back from his Tommy John surgery. He's hoping to return to the rotation for the Cubs late May, early June, so first half of the season. Do you draft him? Really tough to draft a guy that you know is going to probably miss 2 months plus. If you have IR spots, you can draft him, put him on the IR list, then go pick someone else up. You can make that move. The good news for Steele is that his game is heavily about fastball. He throws it a ton. So hopefully he can return with enough control to let that rock and roll and not have to worry about, finding 5 pitches on the hill like some other guys. They're obviously going to be cautious with the return, look for him to build throughout the year, look for him to, obviously be a significant contributor down the stretch and potentially into the playoffs. They added Edward Cabrera to the Cubs to give them some depth there. We'll continue to monitor things with him. Garrett Cole threw a bullpen on Tuesday, and the reports are good. And it sounds like Cole, who had internal brace procedure last March. Again, there's 2 types of surgeries on the elbow. Tommy John surgery we all know about, internal brace. A little bit different. Depends where the injury is. Depends the severity of it. You're not always a candidate for the internal brace. Internal brace is generally 10-ish months return, 10 to 12 months. Tommy John's usually 12 to 18 months. So the internal brace certainly has an opportunity for a pitcher to return earlier than anticipated, if you're expecting it to be a year and a half. The surgery was in March, so it's certainly possible that we see Cole very early in the year. In fact, he could be in Grapefruit League games by the end of camp, which means, late May. That's probably a pretty good timeline for Garrett Cole. So he's also in that, zone with Steele, or tremendous background in history. We'll see if they're able to be those guys who they have been, at least this season. Joe Musgrave says he's fully healthy to go, coming back from his elbow injury, should be ready to rock and roll coming back from Tommy John. Won't have an innings pitch limit per se, but at the same time, we know that Musgrave is, as a veteran with a contract, okay. But as we know, you don't just, come back from these injuries and not be concerned a little bit, at least, with the opportunity you have to let me see if I do something here. Sorry, I'm just looking at something. To have the opportunity to return and be successful. Let me see if maybe I didn't send the right information. Let's see as we're doing this here live on the show, because this is good radio. I want to make sure that Tyler Beaker got the link. Oh, there he is. He just popped up. So I guess he's going to be here. We'll be fine. Chris Bubic coming back from his shoulder injury. He threw batting practice the other day. First time in 7 months that he's faced hitters. So that was a good report. He missed most of the second half with that left rotator cuff strain. Positive reports with Bubic. Continue to watch those because he was a very effective pitcher last year, and he's very intriguing this year if the shoulder is indeed healthy. Jansen Junk, who didn't walk anybody last year, has a mild ankle sprain. It's called a grade 1. Good news, because he was in a walking boot. There was concern. Probably a best case scenario given what the initial concerns were. They're not doing an MRI. They're not worried about this. Braxton Garrett, who was in the Breakout Pitcher of the Year article a couple years ago. Chris Paddock. These guys, keep an eye on what happens with Junk, but he'll probably be okay for opening day. We don't know who the closer is for the Diamondbacks. Toy Lavolo said that Kevin Ginkel, Paul Sewald, Ryan Thompson will all get chances here. Don't forget that Justin Martinez and AJ Puck are coming back mid-season. So I no idea who the Diamondbacks closer is. I wish I could help you. You can check the rankings out at fantasyguru.com for my thoughts, but it's impossible to determine right now who's going to lead that team, who's going to get the first save, second save, all that kind of stuff. And then finally, Josh Hader played catch. Woohoo! He played catch. Way to go, Josh. From about 90 feet. There is the hope that coming back now from a biceps issue, that's what they're calling it now, that he'll be ready to go for opening day. We'll see. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. Continue to follow that storyline, of course, because Hader, as we're all aware, is one of the best relievers in all of baseball. I'm Ray Flowers of fantasyguru.com. Every Thursday on the show here, when my technology works at least, every Thursday on the show, we talk to Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com. You know him. You see him over on FG all the time. You see him doing his thing in Discord. You see him doing his thing in chat. You see him writing articles. And now he gets a little bit of a breather. Doesn't have to write an article every day. Doesn't have to dig in. But he's still, I'm sure, doing stuff behind the scenes. Let's bring him in. Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com. We're talking Atlanta Falcons today with Tyler. How you doing, Tyler?
Doing good, Ray. Excited to chat the Atlanta Falcons. For most of the people in my generation, we grew up as the Madden kids. And the 04 Falcons, very iconic with Michael Vick and that blazing speed. So I've been a big Falcons fan for quite a bit. Excited to talk about them specifically with you today as we talk about their season in review and what we're expecting this offseason from them.
Yeah, it's, this, for the listener or viewer, we're basically going to go team by team and kind of review things here over the next couple months. And it's interesting how this will go because March 9th is when the official period begins for free agents. Then we'll have the draft after that. We got the combine this week. Like, these team reports will morph. Like, as we get a little closer to the draft day, we'll start talking, so like now, as Tyler said, we're going to review what happened in 2025. We'll talk about some of the big storylines that did or didn't happen. We'll talk about some coaching changes. We'll talk about some free agency. We'll do a little bit of everything. And so hopefully everyone will stay interested here because it's not going to be just the exact same thing every time we talk every team. Atlanta Falcons. Overall, I mean, it's like they just kind of right?
I thought the writing was on the wall when they drafted Michael Penix that this was just going to be an period until we got through it. And I feel like we're just kind of in the midst of it right now. And that was kind of represented in the games that Penix played. He had 9 games before tearing his ACL, 3rd torn ACL for the record. This is the first time on his left knee. The previous 2 were both on his right, but man, that's a lot of ACL injuries for a 25-year-old. Passing wise, this guy was 22nd in EPA per dropback in the league, 14th in yards per attempt, 16th in passing yards per game. That's fine, like middling, decent, okay. Where I had issues with him was in the fantasy production. The fantasy space, he was quarterback 25 on a per game basis. He sported the 4th lowest passing touchdown rate, which really hindered his scoring ability. And he was also number 2 in highest off-target throw rate. And I was watching through some of his best games and worst games in terms of EPA added or lost. Mm-hmm. And the one consistency I kept seeing was him just not stepping into his throws and him almost like not worm burning, but like throwing it below the target of where he should have thrown more and more. And that's a byproduct of him just not stepping into those throws. I think evaluating quarterbacks is one of the most difficult jobs on earth, and it's why people get paid millions and millions of dollars to do so. My armchair analysis is very minimal at that, but I think there are a lot of flaws in the way Penix plays, and I do not see him as the quarterback of the future for this franchise. Speaking of that, Kirk Cousins, that's a huge thing to talk about as well with the quarterback position. They just recently restructured his contract so that they're able to get rid of him this offseason, particularly before March 13th. So if they get rid of him before that date, that leads to just a $2.1 million cap hit. They moved basically all of his non-guaranteed money in 2026 to 2027. So that's like almost 70 million that's been shifted. Again, huge contract that Cousins signed the same year that they brought in Michael Penix. So this head-scratching QB controversy thing, honestly, it's a big reason why they got rid of their general manager, Terry Fontenot. I think it's a big reason why they cut bait with him and moved on to somebody else. But yeah, the quarterback position to me is just still a position in progress where I don't believe they have the solution.
Yeah, you have a GM come in and we sign a guy to a $180 million contract in Kirk Cousins. Then we draft his replacement immediately. Neither one works, really. They're both middling. I think that's a term you use. No wonder the GM got fired, right? You got to get the quarterback right. I mean, we know that. And he swung twice and missed both times. By the way, because we're talking all this Dodger talk with baseball and the potential strike coming up, and salary cap and salary floor. The NFL's numbers are so fake, it hurts my head. Like it's like baseball, you sign a $180 million contract, you're getting paid $180 million. And it's just a question of how much you're getting each year. And it's in the contract. And we know it's 10 this year and 18 this year and 20. How does the average fan understand these numbers? Because you're here all over the place. Oh, they're 12 million over the cap. They're 37 million under the cap. Like the cap's growing. Like how does the average fan look at this? Because again, this Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million deal. You're talking about them moving $68 million or $68 million. They're just moving it around. Like, what do you do as a fan? How do you understand this?
You don't. It doesn't make sense to me. Ever since they got rid of $85 million with the Russell Wilson contract in Denver, where that was like the biggest at the time, I believe, move. I think we could see Tua kind of rival that this year.
Yep.
It's just funny money. it's just monopoly money. I don't understand it at all, which is frustrating as an analyst. But
right.
What we do know is the guaranteed money is guaranteed. That part is
that's the only thing that really matters, right?
It's the only thing that really matters. So as you're looking through these contracts, make sure you're looking at the details, because a lot of them could be a 4-year, $80 million contract for a random player in free agency, but it could really just boil down to a 1-year, $25 million contract. The years 2 through 4 very cuttable and restructurable. Where again, funny money. It's kind of deceiving in many, many ways. The Falcons right now, they enter with the 13th most cap space, I believe. They are, hold on, let me pull it up. I believe it's 26 million. Yeah, 26 million on cap space. But they can do a lot of things to add more to that. Letting go of Kirk Cousins right now is a $10 million cap hit against them for the 2026 season. Restructuring a few of their offensive linemen, I think that should be high on their priority. Then we've got next year, big contracts looming for both Drake London and Bijan Robinson. So maybe they get ahead of the case there and get one of these guys instead of doing the 5th-year option. Go ahead and get these guys locked up early. Very curious to see what this new general manager does. I think it's a fun aspect in terms of this Falcons team and what we're expecting here for the offseason.
And by the way, Deshaun Watson's $230 million, 100% guaranteed.
Yep.
That's why they don't guarantee contracts in the NFL. Tyler Beaker of fantasyguru.com. You mentioned Bijan, however we say his name. Bottom line is, dude's phenomenal. He's just phenomenal. If you're doing drafts, he's going 1, 2, 3. I don't think he's probably going 1 in the majority of drafts after his season last year. Talk us through what you saw or didn't see. There's that frustration at times, and we'll talk about Tyler Allgeier, who's a free agent. We'll talk about him in a second here, but let's focus on Bijan. There seemingly is always a little bit of frustration that he doesn't get the ball more, but then you look up and it's like there's a lot of touches here. I mean, 287 touches. He had, 79 receptions. That's a lot of work. How are we looking at his season that we just had? How are we looking at him in the future? And how difficult is it to get a full handle on this one? Like you're saying, we don't really know for sure who the quarterback's even going to be in week 1.
Yeah, the quarterback dilemma is a bit of a question mark. I will say that the Penix injury does have him on a timeline to return for week 1, barring any kind of setbacks. But that's the positive news. They could still enter this offseason trying to get somebody for the first month as like a precaution. But I am expecting Penix to be their starter in week 1. Bijan coming off a brilliant year. I mean, just across the board, he's one of my favorite players to watch in the NFL, just the way he moves. Yeah. He's so fluid, so dynamic. Career highs in the receiving game across the board. I thought that was very notable, especially with Penix having the second lowest check down rate. So a lot of these were design throws and design passes and screens. It wasn't just pressure eventually getting to Penix. Penix is a QB that just kind of throws the ball away. That's his MO. He doesn't take sacks a lot. He doesn't check down. That's his MO, is just throwing the ball away. So Bijan kind of could, with another quarterback, get more receiving work, arguably. So I'm kind of curious to see how this offense gets into, as this offense gets implemented in 2026 with Stefanski and Tommy Rees, the new head coach and offensive coordinator, how they try to get more involved with Bijan in terms of the pass game, because I do think there's still more to be had. I think this guy has a legitimate 1,000 possibility, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving.
Roger Craig, here we come.
He could easily do it. I mean, this guy was brilliant in terms of the production. He was RB2 in fantasy points per game, but the advanced stats were just across the board illuminating. RB1 in yards after contact per attempt, RB2 in missed tackles forced per attempt, RB7 in rush yards over expectation, RB11 in explosive run rate, and then RB1 in yards per out run, which I thought that was very notable. So it's not just volume that Bijan's been getting in the past game this past year. He's also been very efficient with that receiving work. And we saw many times him take a simple handoff or dump off and just house it 70 plus yards on a screen, on a swing pass. His play was consistent and elite. Like, this guy finished with 15 plus fantasy points. I think that's if I'm doing a start sit league, I get 15 points out of my running back, I'm happy. Like, that's a decent week for me. 15 plus points in 12 of 17 games. That was the third most among all backs. He had 25 plus fantasy points, which in my eyes, that's a great week. He had that in 7 of 17 games, second most among all backs. So again, consistent and elite. This guy's my 101. I think if you're not going the wide receiver position, Bijan's the easiest running back pick for you to make. Another reason why I'm really bullish on it is I believe Tyler Allgeier goes elsewhere in 2026. He's been a rock solid contributor behind Bijan, but I think it's his time to shine as the lead in a committee. And when I find him notable in terms of like trying to find a team and pairing, that's kind of the fun thing to do right now while we got nothing really going on, which free agents could fit in which location. I look at the Falcons last year. They were number 1 in zone blocking rate, 70%. And Allgeier sported higher marks in both yards per carry and rush success rate on those zone runs relative to man or gap blocking schemes. So I'm trying to find a zone blocking scheme that Allgeier would do well in. And 2 fits in my eyes that I thought were good fits were Chicago and Kansas City, where I think DeAndre Swift is a great back, but I think he's also kind of replaceable in terms of a team like Ben Johnson. A team that Ben Johnson wants to run is going to have multiple backs that are seeing good volume, where it's not going to be, I think, the 1A that we saw with Swift. I think ideally Johnson has this offense running with closer to a 55-45 kind of committee, like what we saw in the yesteryear offense of Detroit with his 2 guys that he had there. Kansas City, they're another team that's top 10 in zone blocking rate. And I mean, all of their running backs, maybe they've got one guy. Rashard Smith, that's him. He's the only singular back on this roster with a contract. So Kansas City really needs to remake their run game. I think Allgeier is a decent option there. I know they'll probably want more of a pass catching back as well, but I think Allgeier really would be helpful in an offense there that just needs like a power back and a guy that's got size. And I just cannot help but liken it to Michael Turner, where we saw him kind of waiting for some years, and then eventually when he got his opportunity, he shined. I think Allgeier could be following similar footsteps.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. It's really interesting when you talk about Bijan in particular. Obviously, he'll be back. Obviously, he'll be the lead guy. We talked about the workload and everything. And there were many complaints, about the way he was utilized this season. He's third in the league in touches. Now, so the real question, at 366 touches is a big number. You think if you had to guess, that number goes up, stays the same, goes down? Because again, in the fantasy space, if he's catching 80 passes, I mean, who the hell cares, right? But if that number is 62 and he only had 7 rushing, is there a downside here, or is last year the floor?
I think it could stay similar. What I'm expecting is possibly a step backwards for this defense with a lot of pieces missing in terms of their defensive line, linebackers. There's just a mass exodus of players in terms of either expiring contracts or James Pierce doing dumb stuff off the field. So I think we could see that defense have a much more challenging time keeping this Falcons team in games, and as a result, we'll probably see more passing by default. So I think we're going to see as many positive running scripts that we saw for Atlanta in 2026 that we saw in 2025. So 366 total, like maybe if we include rushing and receiving, I think ideally you don't want your back flirting with 400 plus. Like, you want them for longevity. And this guy's Bijan, he's again, I think, entering a contract season, if I'm not mistaken, where I don't believe they'll try to run him into the ground. I think this is a guy that they want to be a staple of their offense for the next 6 years.
Right. Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. So we got questions at the quarterback. We have no questions at the running back spot for the guy, but we do have questions about the depth behind him. Let's talk about the wide receiver position here. Woof. Drake London, after Drake London, this is crap. I mean, it's just a crap-tastic group of wide receivers. Talk to us firstly about London. How much does it matter to you if it's Cousins, if it's Penix, if it's Tua Tagovailoa? Like, how much does it worry you, concern you? Or is it just he's getting 9 or 10 targets every week, it just doesn't matter, so he'll be fine?
Kind of what I talked about, where I believe the pass game could take a step forward in terms of volume. London would be the biggest beneficiary. I'm a big-time believer in his talent. He played in just 12 games this year due to injury, but career high in target share, 29.2%, 9.3 targets per game. Like, you're talking the 9 to 10 target range. That's ideal for London. He also had 76.6 yards per game, 13.5 yards per reception. He finished wide receiver 6 in yards per route run, wide receiver 7 in fantasy points per game. Big year for him. How does that look moving into 2026? I still think that there's such minimal competition for targets that he could very easily sustain a lot of these upper end numbers. Pretty even splits when we look at him single high versus two high. But when you look man versus zone, that's where we saw a real big discrepancy in London's performance. He was a zone beater, 33% target per route run, 3.25 yards per route run. Against man coverage, those dropped to 24% target per route run, 1.11 yards per route run. This dude just feasted against zone. He was also one of 4 wide receivers to finish top 10 in yards per route run in both vertically breaking and horizontally breaking routes. This guy does it all. I really, really like what London brings to the table. And I do expect the Falcons to bring in some new competition for targets. I just still see him being as the clear alpha and the clear top of the pecking order in terms of that. And a sizable contract for London is absolutely on the way in my eyes as well. I think that could happen this offseason. Behind him, it's all question marks. But that's nothing new with this Atlanta offense. We've seen it for the last 2 years with Zach Robinson, where he's basically had, think of like an 11 personnel starting group. We've got London, we've got Mooney, we've got our slot receiver, which was kind of variable, that kind of rotated. We've got our tight end, and we got our running back. Those 5 positions I just named there are the guys that soak up almost all of the snaps, all of the targets. It's very thin in terms of rotation relative to many other offenses. That's back-to-back seasons that's unfolded. Don't think that's going to occur here with this new coaching staff under tow. But they have nobody in terms of like developmental receivers. Darnell Mooney, undersized, oft injured. They can save some money. He's an $18.4 million cap hit this year. Ridiculous for Mooney. They can save $7 million just by cutting him. I'm anticipating that to happen. He just really, really let them down last year. But lack of depth, I put like my top 5 team needs for this squad. Wide receivers number 2. They need help immensely across the board, not just in getting starters, but also the depth behind the starters.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. And there's guys, there's Tyreek Hill, there's Mike Evans. They're not going to be in the market spending 20, 30, 50. They're not going to be a big spender at the wide receiver, right? It's more of the, hey, give me Greg Dortch and Noah Brown kind of stuff, right?
I think it could be a fun one where I'd actually like to see them kind of make a trade for Cedric Tillman, a guy we kind of want to see break out.
Right.
He's got those coaching staff ties to Cleveland. Great field stretching piece. I could also see Rashid Shaheed. He could make his return back to the NFC South.
Right.
Like just a field stretcher, like a guy that opens up paths for the run game and for Darnell and for Drake London. I think a field stretcher is really what they should prioritize. But again, not a guy that breaks the bank, but just a decent contract.
Kyle Pitts. Let's talk about him. Can't move on with Falcons without talking about Kyle Pitts. And, Kyle Pitts comes out of college, and he was supposed to revolutionize the tight end position. And, most people, and when I say most, 98% of people thought this guy was going to end up in the Hall of Fame. Like the question was just how great was he going to be? And there have been moments, right? There's absolutely been moments. There's also been the insanity with his touchdowns per year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's played 5 years and his touchdowns have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is impossible. There's been moments where he's been hurt. There's moments where it seems like he may or may not have really cared. He was kind of going through the motions. He's not going to be a free agent. Coming off an 88 catch, 900 plus yard season, this is his best overall season. And he's going to get paid by somebody. Is it going to be the Falcons?
I don't know. I think it's a really good question. He's coming off his best season as a pro, big stat line. Fantasy-wise, he was the fantasy tight end 5, 12.4 fantasy points per game. But he's a liability as a run blocker, and that won't fit with every type of offense. Behind him, we've got Charlie Warner as the only other tight end on this roster with a contract. We've seen this Stefanski-Reese combo in Cleveland lean on the guys like David Njoku, Harold Fannin. Yep. We've seen them also invest round 2, round 3 picks, round 4 picks in the tight end position. Harrison Bryant comes to mind. Mm-hmm. We've seen some other guys where they want athletes at the position. And I don't think the way Pitts plays as like a receiving only type of tight end is really going to jive with what they're trying to do there. Okay. So do they franchise tag him? $16 million. They did the 5th-year extension, the 5th-year option last year. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's worth the $16 million as a franchise tag. Could they transition tag him? Well, $13.5 million. That allows them to match any kind of offers offered by any other squad. Do they let him walk? Do they try to pick up a conditional pick? Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the more likely path. Talking about Cleveland, I don't want to put all the ex-Browns on the squad, but
Right.
David Njoku makes a lot of sense to me. He's a free agent.
Yeah.
He said like 2 weeks ago he's out of Cleveland. He wants nothing to do with them.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see him. I mean, this team needs weapons. He could be the number 2 option behind Drake London, and that wouldn't shock at all. Njoku, one of those guys that's been a lot of tight ends are slow burners when they enter the league as young prospects. Kyle Pitt's no exception there. Like a 21-year-old, very raw. Took him 5 years to finally put up a usable fantasy season that we could depend on week in and week out. Njoku kind of in that same walk where he had a slow burn as well early in his career, but these last 2 seasons they've just really picked it up. And the blocking element is just very important piece of what the Stefanski-Reese offense wants to do. So I think that he would be a wise addition for them. I don't see this team keeping Kyle Pitts, but I could be wrong there. Like, again, this team is just the cupboard's empty. So just keeping somebody that's familiar with the whole offense and scheme, I could see them go either way with Pitts or Njoku. This team also, remember, they don't have a round 1 selection after trading for James Pierce last year. They gave it to the Rams. So they're also entering this draft class a little thin in terms of draft picks. So maybe we see them start trading back to accumulate more picks. But that being said, I still think tight end's a massive need for this team.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. So we have uncertainty at quarterback. We have uncertainty at depth at running back. We have no depth at wide receiver. We may not have a tight end. There's a lot of we got a new head coach. You mentioned it. Got a new OC. Like there's a lot of things going on here. A lot of uncertainty with how it's all going to play out. Obviously, this is a kind of a pivot point for the franchise. You mentioned you have a list of team needs, and you threw the wide receiver depth on there. What else? You kind of sprinkled this through, but what else does this team really need in your estimation heading into 2026, Tyler?
So I really like the addition of Jeff Ulbrich last offseason as their defensive coordinator. They kind of got off to a rocky start with his kid doing something weird during the NFL draft, if you can remember that. Pass rusher, though, edge. So they lost, what's his name? Rookie James Pierce due to 5 felonies that he's going through right now.
He's
5.
probably gonna get. Yeah, that's probably not going to turn out well.
I don't believe so. I think that we may be looking at a one and done kind of career,
possibly,
which is unfortunate because he had 10.5 sacks last year. Prior to that, last year, you have to go all the way back to the 2004 season to find a year where the Atlanta Falcons were top 10 in sacks.
Wow.
Shout out Patrick Kearney. Shout out to Michael Vick. That's where it comes full circle with the Madden thing.
Okay.
But their sack rate by year over the last 7 years, they were 31st, 21st, 31st, 32nd, 23rd, 31st, 25th. That's just dating back to 2018.
As an organization, how?
Yeah.
How can you allow that? You know it's a weakness. Every year it gets more pronounced. How? God, it's so bad.
I started typing out my notes, and I wrote, it's a decade long. It's been a multi-decade long. I had to rewrite it.
Yeah.
But then 2025 happened, and they hired Jeff Ulbrich. And this team flipped its aggression. They went number 2 in blitz rate. And because of that, they ended the season number 2 in sacks for the first time. And since 2004, they had a top 12. 57 in total sacks. New franchise record. Unfortunately, their leading sack guy, James Pierce, 10.5 out the door. Mm-hmm. They had 12 different players, though, with multiple sacks. So which circles back to why I liked Ulbrich, he's bringing pressure from slot corners, linebackers, edge players, defensive linemen, just mixing and matching how he's trying to get pressure. But they can't shy away from it now. They found something that worked for them, and right. Blitzing really did work for them. But the loss of Pierce is monumental in terms of taking a step forward or building off what they did last year. So I think edge should be their top priority. The problem is when you look at the pass rushers now in the open market, the top 6 or 7 of them are all 30 plus years older. Do these 30-year-old guys want to go play in Atlanta where cap space is meh? The chance to win the NFC South is meh. But even if you win the NFC South, do you go far in the postseason?
Right.
I don't see that happening. Maybe we get one of the younger guys, but Trey Hendrickson, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Bradley Chubb, Hassan Reddick, Leonard Floyd, all 30 plus. So I don't see that really happening. Maybe Leonard Floyd returns, but he's also flirting with retirement. He was with them last year. I don't know. I just think it's really tough that this is a younger team. So adding one of these guys just doesn't really make sense in terms of a structural build. But again, their first draft pick is pick number 48, so middle of round 2.
Yeah.
Which kind of edge guys are you getting there?
Would you? And I mean, there's 32 jobs, right? Would you have taken this job?
Like sometimes I'd take any of them.
You would. It wouldn't matter. Okay, because sometimes the guys will back out and say they'll get the next cycle. You would have taken it.
GM is, I think, different than coaching, where I think general managers have maybe a bit of a longer leash.
Right.
Yeah, I would be interested in this. And they're in a general manager, Ian Cunningham. He comes from the Bears. We saw a pretty good rebuild over these last few years. Mm-hmm. He was one of their assistant GMs. Replaces Terry Fontenot, who what pained me watching Fontenot was he'd never traded back in his drafts, so he never accumulated more picks. And I'm very eager to see if Cunningham kind of bucks that trend. Fontenot also was a guy who really trended towards youth and really high RAS, relative athleticism. Those were also some trends that he tended to have as a general manager. So I'm just eager to see someone else in there. I think this Falcons team kind of had the writing on the wall after we saw the Cousins and Penix both Penix Cousins combination both coming in one singular offseason. I feel like the writing was on the wall, but yeah, I'd take any general manager job.
He's available, folks. We would hate to lose him at fantasyguru.com, but if you're an NFL team, we will allow him. We won't be one of these teams to say it's not moving up. We'll allow him to take that job if it's offered. Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. I mentioned at the start of your visit here, Tyler, today that you're not doing anything right now, which of course is a lie. But what are you doing right now? Talk to the listener and the folks over at FG. What do they have to expect from you here moving forward?
I've actually been working on an article looking at league-wide trends that have happened over the last decade, basically. Looking at some things in terms of total play volume, starting field possession, scoring, pass rate, rush rate, where the ball's going, trying to figure out how the NFL has shifted over the last 10 years or so, and trying to add a fantasy spin to it as well. So I'll have that article out next week, but it's been something I've been working on the last week or so, trying to just put an end on the 2025 season, put an end on that kind of last 10 years, and then I'm going to start shifting my focus towards these rookie prospects. I kind of have all my rookie profiles outlined in terms of which guys I want to start with, but yeah, I really can't wait for that to happen. Don't really care about the underwear Olympics. Not really my thing, but
okay.
So I'll be looking more at the film that they've got here on these guys.
Overall, and we'll obviously dig into it here on the show and, of course, at fantasyguru.com. Overall, I think I've heard, and tell me if I'm wrong, that people are more excited about the 2027 class than the 2026 class. Is that right, or did I have that wrong?
It sounds like that's a perennial statement that we're always looking forward. Yeah, N+1 is always better than N. That feels like that's something that we could say every year. But I do believe that's kind of accurate here with this class.
Tyler Beaker, fantasyguru.com. He'll continue to join us on Thursdays. We'll continue to talk about team by team with him like we did today. As he noted, he's writing articles, still doing the work behind the scenes over at fantasyguru.com. He's also in Discord, so I'm answering questions in there. So if you have questions, remember, folks, when you get a subscription at fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. When you get a subscription, it's all time. I mean, you get it's all year round. Let's go. It's not football, as Jeff says all the time, never stops. Mm-hmm. It's nothing's happening in football, but we're still doing football. So if you're subscribed, we're always in Discord answering questions. I was answering Dynasty questions this morning too. So we'll see. I don't know why people are making Dynasty trades right now. I don't know. Again, I've said this before. I don't think it's a great time to be making trades, but people gotta be involved. And if you do, we can help you over at fantasyguru.com. Tyler, thanks for your visit today. We appreciate it. Thanks for talking Falcons. Sorry it wasn't a better team to start off your and my journey, but they'll improve as we move forward here.
Yeah, hopefully so. I'm very excited about this offense, and hopefully they can make Penix a better passer and hopefully execute some more schemes that help him. Some of the big things I'm excited about with Tommy Rees, specifically as a play caller, more plays under center and more play action. I think those are two little keys that can really help elevate Penix's game. But yeah, it was a blast looking at the Falcons. Excited to go into our next team next week.
Hopefully his knees hold up too. That's a wild 3 surgeries. Yeah, I don't know. Get him a wheelchair, folks. He's Dan Marino. I don't know. Tyler, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
All right, sounds good, Ray. Thanks.
He's Tyler Beaker. I'm Ray Flowers. I'll be back with you tomorrow talking with Russell Clay. We'll continue our look around the NFL. 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today and tomorrow, the Elite Sports Show with Jeff Manns. Remember, Jeff is off next week. I'll be hosting the show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. We'll get an appearance from Tyler Beaker over on SiriusXM next week as well, so stay tuned for that. For Tyler, I'm Ray. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.